Naram chaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jaya udirayet Nashta prayeshu badreshu Nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavate uttam shloke Bhaktir bhavatir naishtiki Om Ajnantimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachanam pangam langate girim Yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Parmanandam Madhavam. All glories to the assembled devotees. So we were reading from chapter 24, Devahuti's Lamentation. We are in the last section of the chapter, which essentially is a conversation between Kardama Muni and his son, who also happens to be the personality of Godhead, Lord Kapila. So we saw that after Lord Kapila appears, Kardama Muni approaches him in an isolated spot. He glorifies him as a personality of Godhead, the creator, maintainer, destroyer, source of all knowledge, etc. And then he presents his own desire, which is to leave Grahastha life and travel in the forests as a Pariviracharya, as a renunciate. We also had some discussion about the mood of Kardama Muni to leave the Lord who has appeared in his house and look for him in the forest. And we discussed different reasons that to establish following to Varnashram Dharma, to also acknowledge his own, to prevent rasabhas, mixture of rasas between dasya and vatsalya, and also to acknowledge his svabhav as one who is more likely to get spiritually nourished through the process of renunciation. And Kardama Muni's request is well received by Lord Kapila, and he blesses him that, yes, you can go. And he also says that you will also attain perfection. So we were in this part of the conversation happening between Lord Kapila and Kardama, where Lord Kapila is speaking. So starting from verse 40, 3:24, 40. Matra dhyadmikim vidyam samanim sarvakarmanam vitarishye yaya chasho bhayam chate arishyati. I shall also describe this sublime knowledge, which is the door to spiritual life, to my mother, so that she can attain perfection and self-realization, ending all reactions to fruitive activities. Thus, she also will be freed from all material fear. So even though Devahuti has not approached Lord Kapila so far as the omniscient Lord, he's aware that when Kardama Muni was getting ready to leave, then Devahuti had requested him to stay back till she was in a position of being fearless. And in response to that, Kardamuni had recollected the benediction that he had been given by the Lord, more like a promise, and then told her about the imminent appearance of the Lord, which fructified. So here the Lord is assuring Kardamuni that your wife, my mother, was anxious that your leaving would leave her unprotected. So you don't have to worry about that. So, asau bhayam atirishati, that she will overcome fear. So specifically, she had asked for protection. And Lord Kapila is specifically addressing that request, that concern, that bhayam atirishati, that she will overcome fear. So not only is he bidding Kardamuni in all with all his well wishes, he's also assuring him that you don't have to worry. Srila Prabhupada mentions that when sannyas was allowed, then the husband could only take sannyas when the wife is properly protected. Generally, it means protected from a material perspective, that there is an older son who is able to take care of the mother, so then the husband leaves. But here we are talking about spiritually advanced personalities. So Kardamuni and Devahuti does mention that you are like my guru. She laments that I have not taken advantage of the association that I should have. I took advantage of your association as a husband from an enjoyment perspective, but not as a devotee of the Lord. And Lord Kapila is saying that don't worry about that. She will automatically be protected once she gets shelter of the knowledge that I will preach to her. Next verse, 41. Maitre vacha evan samyuditastena kapilena prajapatihi dakshini krititam prito vanameva jagamaha. Shri Maitreya said, thus when Kardamuni, the progenitor of human society, was spoken in this fullness by his son Kapila, he circumambulated him, and with a good pacified mind, he at once left for the forest. So the last 7 verses in this chapter, 41 to 47, they will talk about the renunciation and subsequent perfection of Kardamba Muni. So Srila Prabhupada once again makes the point that in the Vedic society, the going to the forest is compulsory. One should not aspire to stay as a grahastha at all points of time. And then he also says that in the current day and age, that is not possible. So going to the forest is equivalent to mentally adjusting one's engagement. So even when staying in a house, it's possible to be a sannyasi if one is renounced. And Prabhupada says in this day and age, that is what is recommended. Next verse, 42. Vratam sa sthito maunam atmek sharno munihi nihisango vicharat kshonim annagir aniketanaha. The sage Kardam accepted silence as a vow in order to think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and take shelter of him exclusively. Without association, he traveled over the surface of the globe as a sannyasi, devoid of any relationship with fire or shelter. So we see the aspects of renunciation over here, specifically two aspects of renunciation. One is maunam. So maunam means, literally it means not to speak. Typically it means not to speak about worldly matters. So if one only says Krishna Katha, that is as good as maunam. And one may speak, Prabhupada says one may speak all day about Lord Krishna and be the perfect Mauni. So that was one aspect. The reason that sannyasis either take prolonged or occasional words of mauna is because it is also a way for them to cut off with the society, because speaking is one of the primary modes of engagement. So when you speak, then one thing leads to another, one question leads to another question. So it's one of the primary modes by which a person becomes materially engrossed. So it's a more external, just like going to the forest is a more external form of renunciation. Not speaking is also a more external form of renunciation. And then anagnihi. Anagnihi is without fire. And aniketana is without shelter. So these both, they are more internal forms of renunciation. So anagni means giving up two kinds of fire. So one fire is the sacrificial fire, and the other fire is the one that is used for cooking. So when a person becomes anagni, then he gives up both the fires. So a sacrificial fire is the duty of a grahastha that they are supposed to. We see in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, they're supposed to perform sacrifices in the Vedic context. We see that in the pastime of the Pandavas, that the Pandavas for 13 years were traveling, at least for 12 years, 13th year they were living in Agyatwas, but 12 years they were traveling all over the forest, but they always carried the sacrificial fire with them. And towards the end, when Maharaj Yudhishthira got the news of the departure of Krishna, and he gave up his kingdom. So one of the things that he also does is that he throws away the sacrificial fire when he's heading towards the mountains, basically indicating his detachment from the more ritualistic aspects of one's existence. So that is one anagni. The other anagni is the cooking fire, which is more straightforward to understand. That in a grahastha life, the cooking fire is important. And now it's not that much, but in earlier houses, if you see, the kitchen used to be the center of the house. The houses were constructed around the attached to the kitchen used to be a DT room, and the rooms were kind of set around the kitchen. The kitchen typically had two sections. There was one more of the inner sanctotum where people would generally take a bath, be clean, and then go. And there was an extension of the kitchen where people would actually sit and eat. So that's how they would get food like that was hot and freshly cooked. And adjoining the kitchen used to be the DT room. So the cooking was done, offered, and then the family members sitting would eat. So this engagement with the fire was kind of one of the core anchors in Grahastha life. So sannyasi gives up that. They don't They don't cook for themselves, so they have no need for the fire, and there's no engagement with the family. So that is aniketana, no shelter. So the sannyasis there are completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. So no shelter means no shelter from the elements of the weather, no shelter from thieves and bandits and animals. So that kind of fearlessness is very difficult to attain. But one who has this conception that Rakhe Krishna Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke, one is able to develop that kind of aniketana. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that there are 18 processes of attaining knowledge and perfection, and by his vow, Karda Muni adopted all the principles of self-realization. So, purport is that Kardama Muni had single-minded focus on self-realization, and he was working exclusively towards that. The 18 processes that Prabhupada mentions, I'm speculating a little bit, but my sense is that he's referring to, and so in the Bhagavad Gita 13th chapter, verse 8 to 12, Krishna recommends that there are 20 qualities that are conducive to advancement, out of which he doesn't divide it, the acharyas divide it, that there are 17 qualities that are general, which are applicable to both bhakti and gyan. 2 qualities are for gyan only, and 1 quality is exclusive for bhakti, the quality of taking shelter of only Krishna. So, so my sense is that the 17 general, which also support bhakti, and the 1 exclusive for bhakti, are the 18 that Srila Prabhupada is referring to in terms of the process of attaining knowledge and perfection. Context seems to resonate. Okay, verse 43. Mano brahmane yunjano yattat sadasatah param guna vabha se viguna ek bhaktya anubhavite. He fixed his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahman, who is beyond cause and effect, who manifests the 3 modes of material nature, and who is beyond those 3 modes, and who is perceived only through unfailing devotional service. So this verse is one that is commented by the acharyas in a little bit of depth, because it could be interpreted in different ways. Mano Brahmani Yunjano. So one might say that Kardama Muni has just met Lord Kapila. So why is Mano Brahmani Yunjano? Why is he fixing his mind on Brahman? Why is he doing that? And understanding this verse also, it also gives us another important aspect, is that one should not look at words in isolation. They should be looked in a contextual perspective. So the word that is used here is Brahmani, which is used to describe, which is described as Sata Sata Param, beyond the dualities of cause and effect. Sata Sat is cause and effect. Sata Sat is also auspicious and inauspicious. So it is Sata Sat Param, that is beyond the dualities of cause and effect, auspiciousness and inauspiciousness, and it is described as Vigune. So guna is the modes of material nature, and viguna is beyond the modes of material nature. Now, so far, this still is a description of the Brahman. So Brahman is Satasat Param, because it is beyond cause and effect, beyond auspiciousness and inauspiciousness, and it is vigune. There is no modes of material nature. Yet, if you look at the translation, Srila Prabhupada translates Brahmani as Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahman. And the reason is that Brahmani is further qualified by Eka Bhaktya Anubhavite. So Eka Bhaktya Anubhavite is that which is perceived. Anubhav means perceived by Eka Bhaktya, by exclusive devotion. So the phrase Guna Avabhase, who manifests the three modes of material nature, obviously cannot be applied to Brahman because it is Nirgun. Also, the phrase Guna Anubhavase can be interpreted as one who manifests. So, Guna is qualities, the one who manifests spiritual qualities, such as beauty, sweetness, and power. So, beauty, sweetness, and power are collectively referred as Avabhavase, that is devoid of modes, Vigune. So, Guna Avabhase Vigune is one who is manifesting spiritual qualities such as beauty, sweetness, and power, devoid of mode. So if you take these things together, that the Brahmani is referring to that which can only be perceived with devotion, Eka Bhaktya. And Brahmani is referring to that which has no material qualities, but which is avabhase, which is full of beauty, sweetness, and power. So one can understand that Brahmani can only refer to the Sagun form of the Lord. Because when you talk about beauty, sweetness, power, when you talk about Anubhavate, you can't experience Brahman, right? Brahman is just you're there, hanging out somewhere. Eka Bhaktya, especially when devotion comes in. So you're referring to the personality of the Godhead. Srila Prabhupada in the purport also says that in this verse, three things are mentioned: Bhakta, Bhakti, and Bhagavan. So, Eka Bhaktya Anubhavate. So there is the mention of the process of bhakti, and there is the mention of the devotee and the Lord. So without these three, Bhakta, Bhakti, and Bhagavan, there is no meaning to the word bhakti. So Karada Muni fixed his mind on the Supreme Brahman and realized him through bhakti or devotional service. This indicates that he fixed his mind on the personal feature of the Lord. So what does it mean? That the Brahman that is referred over here is referring to the personal feature of the Lord. Because Brahman has, if you looked at the Shabdakosh, it has many meanings. It has a long list of possible meanings. Brahman means not material, spiritual, that which grows, that which exists. There are many meanings. So contextually, the acharyas are explaining over here. So in this verse, we see that by use of the word Eka Bhaktya, devotion is present. The devotee is implicitly present because the verses are being spoken about Kardama Muni. So the personality is present, Kardama Muni is present, and one can therefore understand that Brahmani can refer to only Bhagavan. So when two things are present, devotion and devotee, then Brahmani can refer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahman. Jiva Goswami in the Bhagavad Sandarbha, he gives he gives a more mathematical kind of a explanation, saying that even if you assume that the Brahman here refers to the impersonal Brahman, but because of the presence of the word bhakti, what we can understand is that when bhakti becomes steady, then one begins to perceive the energies of the Lord. So essentially what it means is that Kardama began to perceive the Lord. And when the sadhana bhakti becomes more and more mature into Shuddha bhakti, then one begins to perceive the very, very personal form of the Lord. So he says, even if you say that Brahman refers to impersonal Brahman, because of the presence of bhakti, you can understand it in this way. So in all ways, this verse is understood to point to the fact that Kardama Muni was performing exclusive devotional service to Krishna. Okay, verse 44. Nirankriti niramamscha nirdvanda samadrak swadra pratyak prashanta dhir dhira parashanto mirivodadi. Thus he gradually became unaffected by the false ego of material identity and became free from material affection. Undisturbed, equal to everyone, and without duality, he could see himself also. His mind was turned inward and was perfectly calm, like an ocean of unagitated waves. So what was the manifest changes in Kardama Muni because of what he was doing? So this verse talks about the fact that he developed Atmagyan. So he began to see himself. So see himself means that he was able to see himself as spirit and not matter. So this verse is the preliminary verse to Kardama Muni seeing Krishna. Right now he's seeing himself as who he is. Right? Sammangyan has three aspects. So you see yourself as who you are, see the Lord as who he is, and understand the relationship. So he's seeing himself as the spirit soul. And what was the manifest symptom to prove that this is what was happening? That he began to be equipoised. He was unaffected by false ego. He was equal to everyone without duality, perfectly calm, like an ocean unagitated by the waves. Prabhupada says this very example is also cited in Bhagavad Gita. Does anybody remember that verse? About where Krishna himself talks about, gives this analogy of ocean unagitated by the waves, perfectly calm, like an ocean unagitated by the waves. So it appears in the second chapter. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Go ahead.
No, I don't know the verse, Prabhu. I think it is one who is situated in the transcendental. He is describing about the characteristic of the transcendental person. So there he is describing about how he becomes an ocean where the rivers join continuously, still the ocean doesn't get disturbed.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It appears in the second chapter in response to Arjun's question about what are the characteristics of a Sthita Pragya. And one of the things Krishna says is Apuryamanamachal Pratishtam. So just like an ocean is undisturbed by rivers coming into it, such a person is undisturbed by all the action of the material senses. So this is talking about Kardama Muni's relationship with respect to matter. He saw that he was no longer matter but spirit. Now let's see what next happens. Verse 45. Vasudeve Bhagavati Sarvagya Pratyagatmani Parena Bhakti Bhavena Labdatma Mukta Bandhanaha. He thus became liberated from conditioned life and became self-situated in transcendental devotional service to the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, the omniscient super soul within everyone. So next, if Karda Muni had stopped at the previous verse, then that would have been Brahman realization. That I'm not the body, I'm the soul, I'm spirit, I'm Brahmasmi. But we see that Karda Muni progresses. So not only does he become liberated from conditioned life, he becomes self-situated in Bhakti Bhavena. It says Parena Bhakti Bhavena. So of the Pratyakatmana, Atmani, of the personality of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this position is described as Labdatma in the verse. Labdatma means one who is self realized, or Mukta Bandha, one who is free from all material contamination. Prabhupada says that the word Parena is very significant because Para means transcendental to matter. So when Mishra Bhakti is performed, it is called Vidha Bhakti. And when pure devotional service that is transcendental is formed, that is called Parabhakti. So Karda Muni was situated in Parena. So he was situated, he already became free of material contamination. And on that platform, the bhakti that he was executing was Parabhakti. This phrase, Pratyak Atmani. So Pratyak Atmani is translated by Srila Prabhupada and Jiva Goswami as the super soul within everyone. So in the context of the verse, it is said that he became self-situated in transcendental devotional service to Vasudev, the omniscient super soul within everyone. So the super soul within everyone is Pratyak Atmani. And to further describe the phrase, Sarvagya is used, that he is all-knowing. And who is he? Vasudeva Bhagavati. That he is the personality of Godhead who is the son of Vasudeva. Vishwanath Chakravarti translates Pratyak Atmani to describe a Mukta Bandhana, that such a person is a liberated soul. Both interpretations are valid because Pratyak Atmani can also mean to describe a liberated soul. Jiva Goswami states in Sandarbha, Bhagavad Sandarbha 89 Anuched, that after realization of Brahman by bhakti mixed with Brahma Gyan, by the strength of the purification of bhakti, he realized Brahman. That is described in this verse. He attained the spiritual identity, Labdatma, by the state of bhakti, Bhakti Bhavena, which was Parena, which was at the level of Prem, directed to Pratyagatmani, directed to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this stage is he attained after Prakrit Ahankar was destroyed, after his material false ego was destroyed by Brahmagyan. So one may ask at this time that is this destruction temporary or permanent? That when one's ahankar, one's false ego is destroyed, is it destroyed for some time or is it destroyed for ever? And Vishwanath Chakravarti says that it is clearly stated in the Brahma Sutra 423, Anavrita Shabdat, liberation by sound. And he refers to Bhagavatam 3:26-32, that according to scriptures, one does not ever return to bondage. So the Mukta Bandhan is actually Nitya Mukta Bandhan. That once the person is Mukta of the Bandhan, he is forever freed of the bondage. Now this, of course, raises the perennial question that does the person lose free will? And of course it does not. But the person is situated to properly use the free will. Free will is always there. Okay, verse 46. Atmanam sarvabhuteshu bhagvantam avasthitam apashyat sarvabhutani bhagvatyapi chatmani. He began to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He began to see that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is seated in everyone's heart, and that everyone is existing on him, because he is the super soul of everyone. So this was predicted by the Lord. And in his conversation, we are going back to Canto 3, chapter 21, verse 31, where Lord Kapila said that showing compassion, so he's addressing to, not Lord Kapila, Lord Vishnu, when he appeared in front of Kardama Muni, he said that showing compassion to all living entities, you will attain self-realization. Giving assurance of safety to all, you will perceive your own self as well as all the universes in me and myself in you. So almost word to word, that prediction is being confirmed over here. That he began to see the personality of Godhead situated in everyone, and everyone in the Lord. So essentially, what it means is that Kardama Muni saw the Lord in form of Shodakshay Vishnu, situated in everyone, and saw the Lord as Karnodakshay Vishnu, containing the entire universe. So this also helps us to understand that Kardama Muni was attached to the four-armed form of the Lord, because his mood was essentially that of Aishwarya Dasya. So he is essentially a Vaikuntha Vasi. Srila Prabhupada says that everyone is existing on the personality of Godhead does not mean that everyone is also Godhead. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Everything is resting on him, the Supreme Lord, but that does not mean that the Supreme Lord is also everywhere. So Prabhupada is referring here to chapter 9, verses 3 to 5, which are essentially talking about the Achintya Bheda Bhed Tattva. He said this mysterious position has to be understood by highly advanced devotees. Okay, so last verse. After that, we'll take a pause for any discussion. Verse 47. Ichchadve shavihinena sarvatra samachetasa bhagavad bhakti yuktena prapta bhagavati gati. Freed from all hatred and desire, Kardama Muni became equal to everyone because of discharging uncontaminated devotional service, ultimately attained the path back to Godhead, Bhagavati Gati. So in his Sandarbhas, Jiva Goswami says that this verse is actually describing the direct meeting of Kardama with his worshipable Lord. He attained Bhagavati Gati. So he saw everything equally everywhere, because he was devoid of desire and hatred. So the verse combines the two aspects of a jiva's journey back from the material world to the spiritual world. So all these are symptoms of free from hatred and desire, equal to everyone. So these are all symptoms of transcending the material conception, of becoming fully detached from the material conception. And when that is accompanied with the fact that he was Bhagavati Gati, that I'm sorry, Bhakti Yuktena, that this was accompanied with devotional service. And the result is Bhagavati Gati. So these two together are the assurances of a jiva to return back to Godhead. In the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam, it is said that devotees solely engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan never fear at any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation, and hellish planets are all the same. For such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. So the point that is made over here, that attaining the path back to Godhead is change of conception. It could mean the person goes back to Vaikuntha, but it could also mean that the person stays just where he is. But the conception is completely different. That they have no fear of the conditioned life, they have no attraction to any enjoyment, and their only preoccupation is devotional service. Vishwanath Chakravarti says that the word Sahasra Nama. Sahasra Nama, he says, no, I'm sorry. So Vishwanath Chakravarti, he quotes the Sahasranama commentary, in which he says that Sam can also be analyzed to Sa means he who stays, and Ma is Lakshmi. So Sam, Sama, Sam is another name for Lord Vishnu. So the phrase Sama Chetas is one who has Krishna consciousness. So Sam is Vishnu, Chetas is consciousness, so one who is Krishna consciousness. So essentially, pointing to the same fact that I had earlier on stated, that his consciousness changed. The verse can also say that everything may have remained the same, but he became Samchetas, that he became completely imbued with the consciousness of the Lord, free from desire and hatred. These points are developed in Bhagavad Gita 1851 to 55, and Prabhupada in this purport actually quotes 1855, saying that only by devotional service can one understand the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. So this is Bhaktiyo Mamyo Abhijanati. And then he says the process of entering into the kingdom of the God is Tripad Bhuti Gati, or the path back home, back to Godhead, by which one can attain the ultimate goal of life. Kardamuni, by his perfect devotional knowledge and service, achieved this ultimate goal, which is known as Bhagavati Gati. So this is the end of chapter 24. I'll stop here and see if we have any comments or discussion.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just a simple question. The daughters of Kadamba Muni, when they were born grown-up girl when they appear. And Kapila Muni also should be grown up, no? Because he's talking, he's not a baby.
Kapila Muni? Yes, yes, you're right. This is apparently one of the symptoms of Satyug, that people attained youth very quickly. And this is also one of the symptoms of the residents of the upper planets. Like even we know that in Swarglok, there are no children there. Because when somebody is born, they almost immediately attain youth. This is also a symptom of, also found in the Asuras and Rakshasas, that they are born and they attain youth almost immediately. It's not there in humans and other races, but yes, in the more developed human forms, this is something that is seen.
Prabhu, what about Vaikuntha?
Prabhupada mentions in one of this, there are no children in Vaikuntha, right? When there's a description of the Vaikuntha planet.
Yeah, when the four Kumaras went there.
Yeah, that's when he describes the Vaikuntha planet. He says because there's no conjugal relationships over there, there are no children over there.
Thank you.
Nowadays we see that when as Kali Yuga is progressing, we see that people are growing faster, right? I mean, or like they are like children are growing faster. They are able to grasp and understand things better than their previous generation.
That is true. At least you're right. At least like things like how to work on computers, how to play video games.
Yeah, material things.
Yeah. I mean, whether they're able to grasp Bhagavad Gita or learn shlokas, maybe they can. Maybe they are. They're also doing that. As you mentioned, even one of the symptoms in the later part of the age of Kali is described in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam, that girls who are 7 years of age will become mothers, and one who is 20 years will be considered very, very old. Some extent it's pointing to their rapid maturity, also pointing to their shortened life, that they will have short lives, so everything will happen quicker also.
Right.
Doesn't mean that they're becoming divine. I don't know if that was your question.
Okay. Prajy, I had a question on verse 44. So it says that he gradually became unaffected by false ego of the material identity and became free from material affection. Wasn't that a given that when it said the first part that unaffected by false ego, isn't that the same as not being free from material affection?
It is, in a way, it is stating cause and effect. So, as I mentioned, that when sometimes the internal symptoms are further validated by describing the manifest symptoms. So, freedom from false ego is more of an internal adjustment. But things like being unafraid, being equal to everybody, being free from happiness, distress, all those are more manifest symptoms that simply confirm the change of consciousness. And all these verses, they're primarily, so they're giving past tense, but they're also meant to teach us. So when you read this verse and you say, okay, this is what was happening, then in my case, maybe I'm not completely free from fear or affection and desires, but I'm lesser affected by it. So then we can correlate that, yes, maybe I'm completely not free of false ego, but the effect of the false ego is reducing. So the whole Puranas are constructed in this way, that they tell nice pastimes that are interesting and absorbing, and they carry deep philosophical truths embedded within them. So we were reading the Bhagavatam for a while, and the acharyas, with the help of Prabhupada and acharyas, they're able to extract these tattvas and present it to us. Prabhupada in the purport, you'll see that he will often talk about contemporary things, that how does this affect us? And he's essentially, more in a manifest way, he's bridging that gap. That this is the implicit message given by this verse, and this is how we can take to it in our lives.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhu, I don't know that I missed you speaking about it, Prabhu. I also heard Maharaj saying that false ego can be only dissolved by the process of Bhakti Yoga. I think it is part of the Kapila Muni's teaching to Mother Devavati. So we saw here how the Brahman realization leading to the dissolution of false ego or giving up of false ego. And I think you are probably saying that the Brahman realization here means the Bhakti Yoga, not just the Brahman realization. So yeah, I'm not 100% confident in saying this statement, but that's what I heard, that only Bhakti Yoga can dissolve the false ego.
And that's what is said in these verses. When the word Brahmani was used in that verse, then the acharyas and Srila Prabhupada, they make this connection, that only because he was engaging in Bhakti Yoga was all this possible. So yes, I fully agree with the statement you're making.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Probably a basic clarification question. The purpose of this Sankhya is to have the devotional service. Right? When Kadgam Muni was giving the justification, you can say, or preaching to Devahuti, he was acting per his adhikar, saying that, giving the assurance to surrender all the activities. Basically, the Abhedan he was giving in the form of Sankhya. So he is going according to his adhikar there. My question is the fearful activity which Devahuti showed. She already surrendered to Khadgu Muni, right, as a guru. Why is that fear factor still existing?
So there are two aspects to how I would respond to that question. One is that surrender does not automatically give perfection. So she was definitely surrendered to Karda Muni, and because of that, she was at an extremely advanced position. We see by her antecedents also that she had material desires. She wanted to enjoy, wanted to have children, offsprings, etc. Being fearful is a continuation of that. So she was there, but not all there. And the fact that she was surrendered to Karda Muni, a great devotee, that was one of the reasons that she got mercy of Lord Kapila. Second is the point that is made by Jiva Goswami, that Devahuti did not need any instructions, just like Arjun did not need any instructions. But it was spoken for our benefit. So a lot of these pastimes involving exalted personalities who are asking questions, Narad going to Brahma and saying that, are you the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Very unlikely that Narad is really confused about it. But he still goes, we saw in the second canto, right, in the 5th chapter, that he goes to Brahma and says that are you the personality of Godhead? And Brahma says, no, even I am under the dominion of somebody else. So personalities like them, when they ask these questions, they're primarily for the benefit of people like people who are coming, posterity, people who are coming later on, reading the scriptures. Because these kind of questions can only be asked by people who are in knowledge. And they can be only answered by people who are very advanced. Right? So if somebody like me went, we would ask all the kind of wrong questions. Firstly, we would never be able to approach somebody like Lord Brahma or Krishna or Lord Kapila to ask questions. We don't have the qualifications. Even if we did, we would ask all kind of wrong questions that, what kind of stock will do well tomorrow, and my house, can I do this? Good time to sell the house, or or something. I'm exaggerating, but we would not ask the right questions. So there would never be any opportunities for these exalted personalities to share their thoughts. So they take, Prabhupada gives this example of the daughter and daughter-in-law. So they take the role of somebody who will really benefit from that and ask those questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can start. If there are no more points, we can start with the next chapter, chapter 25. And so beginning from the 25 chapter all the way till 33 is instructions by Lord Kapila. So 25 to 33 essentially is Sankhya. And 25 aptly begins with the glories of devotional service. So in this chapter, we will see Lord Kapila first and foremost speaking about the qualities, the power, and the excellence of bhakti. So as in a lot of these situations, the discussion comes forth in terms of questions and answer. So the chapter will begin with inquiries from Shaunaka Rishi to Sutta Goswami about what happened. Kardamuni is gone, Lord Kapila is there, Devahuti is there. So what happened? And Sutta Goswami, then he will bring the attention to this conversation that happens between Devahuti and Kapila, in which Devahuti begins by expressing her disgust with the material life. So the first question that she asks is how to dispel it. And then she follows up with subsequent questions. Some of the questions are answered right away, and some of the questions form the basis of the future enunciations by Lord Kapila. Okay, verse 1. So this is 325:1. Shaunakvacha Kapilastatva Sankhyata Bhagwanatmamayaya Jataha Swayam Ajaha Saksha Atma Prajna Pataye Nranam. Sri Shaunak said, although he is unborn, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took birth as Kapila Muni by his internal potency. He descended to disseminate transcendental knowledge for the benefit of the whole human race. So in 5 verses, from 1 to 5, Shaunak Rishi inquires about the activities of Lord Kapila. So he begins by glorifying Lord Kapil that he is unborn, eternal, and by his own energy, he appears to be born. So he's clearly making this distinction that the birth of Lord Kapila is not like the birth of any conditioned soul in the material world. The conditioned souls, they appear because of the force of karma. But the Lord is appearing because, he says, by his inconceivable potency. Similar point made by Krishna in 4.9, Janma Karma Chame Divyam. Prabhupada says that the word Atma, Prajana Pataye, indicates that the Lord descends for the benefit of the human race. So one may question that, okay, the Lord has come, but why has he come? And Prabhupada is saying, for our benefit. For our benefit, he appears to take birth. So later on he says that simply to understand that one is not matter but spirit soul, Aham Brahmasmi, I am by nature Brahman, is not sufficient knowledge for understanding the self and his activities. One must be situated in the activities of Brahman. So now this is the second Brahman. The first was the impersonal Brahman. Then Prabhupada says one must be situated in the activities of Brahman. So this Brahman is referring to the personality of Godhead. Knowledge of those activities is explained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Such transcendental knowledge can be appreciated in human society only, not in animal society, as is indicated by the word Nirnam, for the human beings. So what did Lord Kapila speak for the benefit of? Nirnam, for us, human beings. So the point that is made is that we should take advantage of it. Verse 2. Nahi yasya varsmanaha pumsham varim naha sarva yoginam vishruto shrutadevasya bhuri tripyantame swaha. Shaunaka continued, there is no one who knows more than the Lord himself. No one is more worshipable and more mature a yogi than he is. He is therefore the master of the Vedas, and to hear about him always is the actual pleasure of the senses. So Shaunaka is saying that the Lord is the best of everything. So he's talking about Astanga Yoga, he's talking about Gyan, and he's talking about Karma Kanda. So no one knows more than the Lord, Gyan. No one is more mature yogi than him, Astanga. No one is more worshipable. This is as a devotee. Master of the Vedas, to some extent, points towards the more Karma Kanda part of it. So the Lord is the destination of everything. So anybody who wants anything will benefit by hearing from the Lord. So he is also glorified as the greatest amongst the Purushas. So greatest amongst the Purushas means that greatest amongst Lord Vishnu, and greatest amongst the yogis, such as the Tattriya. So Prabhupada says that all living entities, both Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva, are subordinate to Krishna. The same concept is confirmed here. Nahi yasya varshmana pumsham. Amongst the living entity, no one can surpass the Supreme Person because no one is richer, more famous, stronger, more beautiful, wiser, or more renounced. This is the 6 opulences. These qualifications make him the cause of all causes. So Shaunaka, talking about himself, says that Shrutadevasya, that he himself and people who are sitting there are taking delight in hearing about the Lord. Or Shruta Devasya can also mean that refer to the topics of the Lord who is heard about repeatedly. So Prabhupada comments on this, saying that Shruta Devasya in either sense, hearing about the Lord or hearing about the Lord repeatedly, he makes this point that you can read the Bhagavad Gita many times, and each time it will give you great pleasure. The more one reads, the more one gets the appetite to read and understand it, and each time he gets new enlightenment. This is Shruti Devasya. Because for material things, once you read it, very difficult to pick up and read again. So you may read even if it's a classic novel and you immensely enjoy it and you read it, but once you read it, you're done. Not going to be motivated to read it again. But all of you can relate to this point, that you've read the Bhagavad Gita so many times and you will continue to read it because Shruti Devasya. Because the devotees take delight in repeatedly hearing about the Lord. Verse 3. Yadyad vidate bhagavan swachandatma atma mayaya tani me shradadannasya kirtanyanya anukirtya. Therefore, please precisely describe all the activities and pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is full of self-desire and who assumes all these activities by his internal potency. So after glorifying the appearance of the Lord, the activities of the Lord, after glorifying Krishna Katha, now Shaunak Rishi is placing his continued request that please speak more about him. So he says that the Lord has a body. So Atma here refers to the body. He says Lord here has a body which is Swachandatma, which is independent of any material considerations. So the body of the Lord is not made of matter. It is the Lord's own body. It's not made of karma, it's not made of the modes, it's not made of matter, but it is fully spiritual. And the activities that he's wanting to hear, he's glorifying that they are the activities which the Lord performs Atma Mayaya by his own energy. So one might say that even everything that is happening in the material world is the Lord's activities. They are Mahamayaya. They are performed under the external energy of the Lord. He's saying, no, I want to hear Atma Mayaya, those that are performed under the internal energy of the Lord. So these are activities of the Lord performed with his devotees. And to be more specific, he says, Kirtanyani. Kirtanyani is those that are worthy of being glorified. Kirti means fame. Kirtanyani means, Kirtan means singing the fame of the Lord. So he says, whatever activities that are performed by the Lord, Atma Mayaya, under his internal energy, are Kirtanyani. They are worthy of being glorified. So please describe them to me. Now, in making this request to describe the activities, Shaunak Rishi is also stating the mood with which these activities should be described. And he uses the word Anukirtiya. And Prabhupada says that the word Anukirtiya is very significant because Anu means to follow and Kirtiya means that which is spoken. So Anukirtiya means that only speak that which has been spoken. So now it's not that Shaunak Rishi is complaining to Sutta that so far you have been speculating about things and telling me things that are not in the parampara. But this is again one of those things that is being stated for the benefit of everyone. That when one is hearing the glories of the Lord, they should be anukirtaya. They should be those activities that are spoken by the parampara. I was listening to one of the lectures by Rampad Maharaj, and he was making this point that he did not mention any names, but he said some speakers have become very, very popular, and you listen to them and then you wonder, where are they getting all this stuff from? So, and it is true. I was actually listening to some of the lectures. I'm not sure if Maharaj meant them, but some of the lectures that are very popular, at least on YouTube, and they seem to be very engaging, very entertaining. But there's a lot of stuff mixed within it that I would be curious to know that where is it coming from? Where does this say? Where is that mood described? So sometimes people embellish for the sake of engagement, but it's a little bit of a slippery slope. That what begins with a harmless embellishment can it may start off with like, let me embellish a little bit to make it more engaging to the audience, and that might work, but then the embellishment then will eventually become total flights of fancy. That okay, the audience liked this, they laughed at it, so let me speak a little bit more on that. Let me add a little bit of more fun fact over here, and then pretty soon you're listening to a story that that you find it difficult to correlate. Okay, I'll do a couple of more verses and then I'll stop for any discussion. So now Sutta is going to speak. Sutta vacha dvaipayan sakhastvevam Maitreyo bhagavamstata prahedam viduram prita anvikshikyam prachoditaha. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the powerful sage Maitreya was a friend of Vyasadeva. Being encouraged and pleased by Vidur's inquiry into transcendental knowledge, Maitreya spoke as follows. So this verse also reflects the mood of Sutta Goswami. Sutta Goswami was encouraged and pleased by the inquiry of Shaunaka Rishi. And he's basically resonating with that in the mood of the speakers that he's quoting, that Maitreya was also encouraged by the inquiries of Vidur into transcendental knowledge. So he describes Maitreya as so he says Maitreya Bhagwan. So he uses the word Bhagwan to describe Maitreya. And Srila Prabhupada says that those who are advanced in transcendence, they can also be described as Bhagwan. It, of course, they used to refer to the personality of Godhead, but even those who are close to him. So he says Maitreya is addressed to Bhagwan because he's spiritually far advanced. And one of the symptoms of his spiritual advancement is that he is a friend, which means he's at the same level as Srila Vyasadeva. Srila Vyasadeva is Jnana Shakti of the of the Lord. So we can understand that Maitreya was also very advanced himself. Thus Maitreya was encouraged to answer. Verse 5. Maitreya vacha pitari prastithiranyam matu priya chikeshaya tasmin bindu sarevatse bhagwan kapilah kila. Maitreya said, when Kardam left for the forest, Lord Kapila stayed on the strand of Bindu Sarovar to please his mother, Devahuti. Srila Prabhupada mentions that that was his duty, because the husband had gone, so the son stays back to take care of the mother. So I'll stop here. It's a logical break because next starts the enunciation of Sankhya, beginning with the questions from Devahuti to Kapila. So I'll stop here and see if you have any comments or discussion.
Regarding the lectures on YouTube, popular lectures on YouTube being embellished with more things. Same thing is true with the Kirtan also, Prabhu. Nowadays the Kirtans are embellished with different things instead of just Harinam. And it's been condemned by many senior devotees not to introduce anything, because Prabhupada is very strong to stick only to Harinam Kirtan, not adding Jaya this, Jaya that, and all those different things. And so it's kind of worrisome to see how the generations are adopting to new things and losing track of, kind of feeling a little bit paranoid about that. So yeah, anyway, I was thinking when you spoke on this one.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I see that too. Anything else? Okay, maybe I ended a little early, but it's a logical break. So if there's no more, then I'll give you back 10 minutes. We'll end a little early today. Vancha kalpatarubhayascha kripa sindhu vyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Thai Gaur Premanande. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.